The last dragon forge on Kathrani had gone cold 300 years ago. John Okafor didn't know that when the transport ship dropped him and his small survey team into the Ashgrave Valley. All he knew was that the distress beacon was ancient, the readings were strange, and Emma Voss, his mission partner and the only xenolinguist within 4-star systems, had insisted they investigate before the corporate salvage crews got there first and stripped whatever this was for scrap. "It's not a ship," Emma said, crouching by the enormous structure half buried in volcanic rock. Her scanner blinked erratically. "John, this is organic." Or it was. He knelt beside her, running a gloved hand along a curve of blackened material that looked disturbingly like bone the size of a bridge span. "Organic and 300 meters long." "Welcome to Kathrani," said a voice like grinding stone, and both of them scrambled backward as a shape unfolded from the shadow of the ridge above them. Wings first, then a head the size of a ground car, eyes like dying coals. The dragon did not attack. It simply looked at them with an exhaustion so total it seemed to bend the air around it. "You're the first things to speak in this valley in longer than your kind has kept written records," the dragon said. "I am Vashtareth. I would apologize for startling you, but I confess I no longer remember the customs of hospitality. There has been no one to practice them on." Emma found her voice first, because words were her trade and her armor. "Where is everyone else?" Vashtareth's wings, when they folded, made a sound like a collapsing cathedral. "Gone. Not dead. Worse in a way. Sleeping, and unable to wake, because the fire hearts have failed." The story came out over the next 2 days, told in the dragon's slow, grieving cadence while John's engineering instincts itched at every detail. The dragons of Kathrani were not fire breathers by biology alone. Millennia ago, their ancestors had bonded with the fire hearts, vast geothermal forges built into the mountain roots, artificial hearts of magma and crystal that fed dragonfire not as a weapon, but as a metabolism. Without an active fire heart, a dragon's internal furnace guttered, and eventually the creature fell into hibernation so deep it was functionally death, waiting for a flame that would never come. One by one, the 7 fire hearts had failed. Corroded conduits, cracked thermal cores. Systems no dragon, for all their ancient magic that was really engineering, could repair, because the knowledge of how had been lost even to them. Inherited machinery from a civilization even older than the dragons themselves. "We can feel them," Vashtareth said, gesturing at the sleeping mountain behind him, where John's scanner now showed heat signatures dozens of enormous bodies, cold and still. "My kin, my hatchmates. I am the last to remain conscious, because I chose to keep watch over the final active fire heart, and it, too, is dying. When it fails, I sleep, and there will be no one left awake to remember any of us." Emma's throat tightened. "How long?" "Days," said Vashtareth. "Perhaps less." John was already climbing back into the transport before the dragon finished speaking. The Fireheart chamber was a cathedral of dying light. John stood at the edge of a crystalline structure 40 meters across, its core a lattice of magma conduits that should have been glowing white gold and instead pulsed a sullen, dying orange. Heat radiated off it in waves, but it was the heat of a coal bed, not a furnace. "It's a geothermal reactor," John breathed, running his scanner over the lattice. "An insanely elegant one. This isn't magic, Emma. This is engineering. Look at this thermal regulation matrix. Whoever built this understood convection cycling better than half our current fusion techs." "Can you fix it?" Emma asked. "I don't know yet." He was already unpacking his field kit, mind racing through diagnostics. "Vashtareth, I need you to tell me everything you remember about how this used to run. Every detail, even ones that seem irrelevant." The dragon's coal eyes flickered with something that might have been hope, or might have been the particular pain of hope after centuries without it. "You intend to try." "I intend to fix it," John said. "There's a difference." It took 4 days. John barely slept, cycling between the Fireheart chamber and the wreck of a support structure nearby, where he salvaged conduit housings that had, remarkably, been built to tolerances his own equipment could interface with, once he adapted the couplings. Emma became his hands and his memory, translating Vashtareth's descriptions of half-remembered rituals into engineering specifications, cross-referencing dragon oral history against thermal dynamics. They didn't just feed it fuel, she realized on the second night, poring over her notes by lamplight. The rituals, the songs, the fire dances the old texts mention, they weren't ceremony. They were calibration cycles. The dragons regulated the reactor's harmonic resonance with their own fire breath. It's not mysticism, John. It's a feedback loop, a biological control system. John stared at her, then at the dead conduits, and started laughing. The giddy, exhausted laugh of a man who has just watched an impossible puzzle become merely a very hard one. They built a machine that needed a living creature as part of its own thermostat. That's insane. That's brilliant. Can you replicate it without a dragon's fire? No, John said, but I don't need to replicate it. I need to reignite it long enough for the dragons themselves to take over the calibration again. I just need to give them back the first spark. On the fifth day, John stood at the base of the failing fire heart with a jury-rigged ignition array built from human alloy, dragon-forged crystal, and sheer stubbornness. Vashtareth curled around the chamber's upper ring, close enough that his massive head hung directly above the core. If this doesn't work, John said, the surge could kill the reactor for good. Maybe kill you too, this close. If it does not work, Vashtareth said, with the terrible calm of a creature long past fearing death, I sleep with my kin, and Kathrani forgets we ever burned. I would rather burn once more and fail than fade in silence, small human. Ignited. John looked at Emma. She nodded once, steady, the same nod she'd given him before every insane thing they'd ever survived together. He threw the switch. The chamber screamed, metal and crystal protesting under sudden voltage, conduits flaring orange, then gold, then a white so fierce Emma had to shield her eyes. For 3 seconds, nothing else happened, and John's heart plummeted through the floor of his chest. Then Vashtareth roared, and it was not a roar of pain but of recognition, an ancient body remembering, in the marrow of it, what fire was supposed to feel like. The dragon exhaled, and instead of ash or smoke, pure blue-white flame poured from his jaws into the reactor core, feeding it, completing it, closing a circuit that had been broken for 300 years. The fire heart ignited. Light rolled up through the mountain's roots like a second sunrise. Somewhere in the depths below, one by one, heat signatures that had been cold as stone for centuries began, impossibly, to climb. They woke slowly, over the following weeks, dragons stirring in caverns throughout the mountain, disoriented, ancient, and alive. Vashtareth met each one at the chamber threshold, and Emma recorded every reunion, every disbelieving cry, with tears she didn't bother hiding. John spent most of that time exhausted, filthy, and happier than he'd been in years, teaching the awakened dragons the maintenance protocols so this would never happen again. You understand, Vashtareth said to him, on the last evening before the survey ship was due to return, that you have just become the single most important figure in draconic history. There will be songs, uncomfortably long songs. John, half asleep against a sun-warmed rock with a cup of terrible ship coffee in hand, just grinned. Just doing my job. Emma, sitting beside him, bumped her shoulder against his. Your job is orbital thermal systems maintenance. See? Perfectly relevant. Above them, dragons wheeled through Kathrani's dusky sky in numbers the valley hadn't seen in 3 centuries, trailing fire that lit the mountains gold, not out of vengeance, or hunger, or war. Just because, after 300 years of silence, they finally could.